Good evening everybody. I'm delighted to welcome you to this evening's webinar on the new Forestry Programme. In particular, we'll be focusing on new opportunities for forest creation that are contained within the programme. My name is John Spink. I'm the head of the Crops, Environment and Land Use Programme within Teagasc, and this evening I'm standing in for my colleague Nuala, who unfortunately couldn't be with us. This is an exciting time for forestry. The new programme outlines what you may do over the period 2023 to 2027. And this evening we will provide information and advice that you can use to progress creating a forest on your own farm. On tonight's broadcast, I'm delighted to be joined by Minister of State Pippa Hackett, who has responsibility for forestry, and who will give us some background on the new programme. We will also be joined by Professor Frank O'Mara, Teagasc Director, and he will outline the importance of forestry to Ireland and also how we in Teagasc are supporting forestry. Robert Windle from the Department of Agriculture, Food and the Marine will be outlining the new forest types contained within the programme, and we will also, I'm pleased to say, get the opportunity to hear from the winner of the Teagasc RDS Farm Forest of the Year Award. And lastly but not least, my colleague Tom Houlihan will also give you some information on how you might integrate forestry into your farm under the new programme. So before we get on with the main part of the event this evening, I'll just remind you that tonight's event is live and is being recorded. So if you have any friends or colleagues who can't watch this evening, they'll be able to watch it later online. There's also a question and answer session at the end of this evening's event, and you can submit your questions at any time during the event using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. It may be on the top of your screen if you're using a mobile device. And I hope you'll all stay on to the end to hear about the local information meetings which will be occurring in the middle of October. So firstly, I'd like to welcome our Minister with responsibility for forestry, Senator Pippa Hackett. You're very welcome here to Teagasc this evening. It's been quite a journey to get this new and very ambitious forestry programme, and I'm looking forward to what you have to say this evening. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you very much, John. It's a great pleasure to be here this evening to promote our new forestry programme, which was opened earlier this month. I'd like to thank Teagasc especially for the invitation to speak with you this evening, and I also want to take the opportunity to commend Teagasc on all the work they do to promote forestry here in Ireland. The government approved the new €1.3 billion forestry programme earlier this month, following receipt of full state aid approval from the European Commission. This is a really significant milestone for forestry in Ireland. The new forestry programme is all about expanding, protecting and developing Ireland's forests and the forestry sector. I believe the new programme will be transformative in the sense that it reflects the public's desire for more forests and for forests that meet societal needs across the social, the recreational, the economic and environmental spheres. This new programme is different to previous programmes. It has 12 diverse forest types, providing ample choice for farmers and landowners to plant according to their needs. Speaking of farmers, I think it's really important to acknowledge the enormous contribution farmers have made to forestry in Ireland over the years and in providing timber for our growing economy. I know it's not always an easy decision to get involved in forestry, and I acknowledge that farmer engagement with forestry has been in decline over recent years. Forestry, after all, is a significant and a permanent land use change. I'm also very well aware of the competing demands on land use at the moment and recognise that we must do everything we can to encourage more farmers to get involved in farm forestry. What I would say is this. When we say we want farmers to plant trees, we're not talking about upping sticks and closing the gate. Thousands of farmers across Ireland have incorporated forestry onto their farm enterprises by planting some of their land and continuing their tillage or livestock enterprise alongside the forestry. And this works really well. And I know this from my own farm. We are also seeing very significant interest in agroforestry, which allows farmers to graze animals in between trees, indeed, or plant crops. And I really think that particular forest type will prove hugely popular under the new programme. This model of farm forestry is central to the new programme. And under the programme, as well as premium payments increasing by between 46% and 66%, farmers will receive 20 years of these premium payments compared to 15 years of premium payments for non-farmers. Premium payments now range from €746 to €1,142 per hectare per year. This is a hugely attractive, steady, tax-free income for 20 years for farmers. You will also retain any BIS payments that might be on that particular piece of land as well. These forests can be large scale, they can be small, and there is the prospect also of the tax-free income from any timber that might be sold from the forest in later years. The €1.3 billion funding commitment for this new programme is a strong message of support from government to the sector, and it gives certainty for farmers in the years ahead. It will support rural communities, farmers, sawmills, foresters, and all of those involved in the sector. A successful forestry programme will require greater awareness, both among farmers and the wider public, of the benefits of the different types of tree planting supported under this programme. You may have seen the Department of Agriculture adverts starting to come through in the print media. And we are also currently have an open call at the moment for proposals for forestry promotion projects to further raise the profile of forestry, both as a public good and as a commercially viable enterprise. We are focused too on upskilling forest owners and will continue the well-established forestry knowledge transfer groups. And approvals are already being issued now to knowledge transfer groups. And here farmers have the opportunity to learn about best practice through peer-to-peer learning facilitated by a forester. As you are no doubt aware, the new forestry programme was subject to a strategic environmental assessment and appropriate assessment process. That was part of the state aid approval process, and that has just been finalised. There was active and detailed engagement with the European Commission on the various aspects of the programme during this process, most notably in relation to environmental concerns. During our engagement with the Commission, it was made abundantly clear that this programme must show full compliance with the birds, habitats and EIA directives, and we have taken this on board. Certain changes in terms of assessment of land suitable for forestry were introduced to better ensure and demonstrate compliance to these directives. An assessment of peatland, high nature value farmland and the impacts on breeding waders are now integral parts of the application process. While these changes will be seen by some as undue or unnecessary, ultimately they were necessary to ensure that the programme got full EU approval and also to ensure that we can meet our ambitious environmental targets while also delivering on our economic and social objectives. There are multiple benefits to society as a whole from forestry. As we know, the new programme includes elements such as the Neighbourwood scheme, which will promote open access to forestry and encourage tourism. We are not losing sight, however, of the importance of timber production from our forests either. With our national target under the Housing for All to deliver 300,000 new homes by 2030, the use of timber in construction will be more important than ever in the future, and we need to plan ahead by planting forests for timber now. As for the mature timber coming on stream from existing forests, this will be critical to the decarbonisation of our construction sector. This is why I have established a Timber in Construction working group, bringing together public sector and private sector actors to unlock the potential of wood in construction, so that we see much more timber frame and much more cross-laminated timber in our homes, our offices, our public buildings into the future. Teagasc, in conjunction with my department, will be holding a nationwide series of in-person information meetings in early October, and I would encourage you all to attend at your nearest location. Finally, I am confident that the attractive increases in grants and premiums under this new programme, together with the wide range of choice of forest types and the supports available, will encourage landowners to make the decision to plant some of their trees. Forestry has so much to offer for farmers, for society, for nature and for our economy, and I look forward to seeing the results in the years and decades ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Maybe I could ask you to join me back down on the panel. And I think it's a great demonstration of the commitment of the government to forestry to hear of those significant increases in the payments, not just in terms of the acreage payments or the hectareage payments, perhaps I should say, but also the increase to 20 years from the previous 15 years, which I'm sure some people will find very attractive.
Absolutely, I think it's a real vote of confidence in our farmers as well. We really want them to plant trees. And
certainly will be an option for a number of people. I've got a couple of questions here for you, Minister. I'm going to keep these relatively short because I know we've got about 800 people registered this evening, and we have the Q&A panel at the end, which I'm glad to say you're staying on for. So I'm expecting a significant number of questions coming in during that. So the first question is, with the new environmental screening in the new programme and the ambitious targets for afforestation, do you think it's realistic to have a target of planting 8,000 hectares a year?
I think it has to be realistic. We have targets set in our climate action plan at the moment. Other people might suggest that we need to plant even more than that. So yes, there are challenges. We have challenges from other land use sectors at the moment. I mean, we've seen the challenges in the dairy sector and changes in banding for cows and the nitrates. That's going to have an impact. Also the type of land now that we have identified as being less suitable to plant trees on, land that we may have planted trees on in the past, we now cannot. So that will be a challenge. I mean, even just for one example of the licences we have at the moment, we've increased the buffer area around curlew nests and curlew sites. That's been increased to 1.5 kilometres, but that maybe rules out about 3% of the files we have in the system. So there's an awful lot of land out there across the country that is suitable for forestry, and that's why we would really strongly encourage farmers to engage either with Teagasc advisors or their foresters to see if they have land that is suitable to plant trees and to engage early in that process. And
certainly, as I said, I guess the increased support will make it far more attractive than heretofore.
Absolutely, yes, and I think there's a good blend there to be made to farm with forestry. We've always seen it as either or, agriculture or forestry. It really has to be blended together. It's part of the farm enterprise.
More integrated.
Yeah.
Okay. So one final question, and maybe a slightly contentious question, but I'm going to ask you anyway. So one of the issues that have been aired significantly over recent years is the impact that ash dieback has had on the owners of ash plantations. Is there anything in the new programme to support owners with affected forests?
It is a very sensitive and concerning issue, and it's been something that has been there during my whole term as Minister. It crops up at all discussions around forestry. Ash dieback always comes up. I did in June of this year commission an independent review of my department's supports for ash. We've had two schemes to support ash dieback, for different purposes. I think it's fair to say that the most recent scheme, even though we have made amendments to it and doubled the payment, the supports in terms of site clearance grants and aspects like that, that there's still a lot of dissatisfaction out there, and it hasn't helped in terms of wider farmer confidence in forestry. So that review has been complete. I recently was presented with the report and have met with the independent reviewers as well. So really we're going to spend the next short while taking on board what the recommendations are in the report. I will publish the report, but I want to have more of a handle on what we're going to do with the findings, because I think we do have to do something. So, watch this space. We will come up with some recommendations, and we will come up with the report. We'll publish that very soon. So look, we are making moves in the direction to deal with this issue. It is something I would like to clear up, in my tenure as Minister.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm sure there'll be lots of people waiting eagerly to hear the outcome of that report, and let's hope it's positive, and I'm sure it will be.
Thank you.
And I'm sure there'll be plenty of other questions for you at the end, so We will now move on to our next presentation, and this is by Teagasc Director, Professor Frank O'Mara. Unfortunately, he can't be with us this evening due to a previous engagement, but he did record a message earlier.
Good evening. Apologies that I can't be with you in person this evening, but I'm delighted to have the opportunity to say a few words at this important webinar. And I'd like to acknowledge the presence and contribution of Minister of State Pippa Hackett this evening. This is a very exciting time for farm forestry in Ireland. The government has in place now a very ambitious new forest strategy and a shared national vision for forestry in Ireland. The new Forestry Programme has just been approved, which will create many opportunities for afforestation in Ireland and excellent financial supports. I believe this will make forestry an attractive option for many farmers as a diversification option on their land. The new Forestry Programme will support forest creation objectives at many levels, whether that's at mixed high forest, native woodlands, continuous cover forestry, or indeed planting at a small scale through the native tree area scheme. The Teagasc Forestry Development Department plays a critical role through our applied research, and our training and advisory programmes help farmers to translate that into practice at farm level. We're very ambitious to play our role in meeting the shared national vision for forestry, and we're assessing the resource requirements needed to enable us to do that, and we're engaging with the department in terms of the capacity for additional resource allocation. Teagasc will provide the comprehensive supports required by farmers at all stages. First of all, in assessing the suitability of their land for forestry, in the establishment of forestry on their land, and in sustainably managing that forest for the future. We're enhancing our research capacity, for example in the area of forest and carbon sequestration. And another area we want to strengthen is the resilience of our forests to threats from pests and diseases. Sustainable forest expansion is a key national objective that, if achieved, will provide additional multifunctional forests with multiple benefits in terms of climate, nature, the wood production, the economy and rural development. From a climate perspective, our recently launched MAC 2023 outlines the importance of appropriate forest management and the avoidance of deforestation in meeting our 2030 climate targets. New forest creation afforestation is also important for our 2030 targets, but it's particularly important in terms of meeting our objective of climate neutrality by 2050. To conclude, I believe there is an opportunity for forestry on many farms now, and I would encourage farmers to assess the options available at this stage. Teagasc will support you in that assessment and provide independent advice at all times. A good start would be to attend one of our forestry information seminars that are kicking off in October around the country and that are being organised in collaboration with the Department of Agriculture, Food and the Marine. And we look forward to welcoming many farmers and others to those seminars. Gorabila Mahagwev.
So it's very encouraging, I think, to hear Frank outline his support for forestry, and also to recognise the large job of work that myself and my colleagues, particularly in the Forestry Development Department, are going to have to do over the coming years, and it's something that I think we're very keen to do, and certainly all of my colleagues in forestry are up for the task, for want of a better task, a better phrase. So our next presentation is from Robert Windle. He's a Forestry Inspector from the Department of Agriculture, Food and the Marine, and he's going to outline for us the range of opportunities that exist for forest creation under the new Forestry Programme. Robert, over to you.
Thanks very much, John, and thanks for inviting me here tonight to introduce the Forestry Programme 2023 to 2027. You'll see the rollout of this in national media and advertisement over the next few weeks, in print media, in It Pays to Plant Trees, and also through the farm forestry booklets that will be available at the different Teagasc evening events over the next few weeks too. I suppose to jump into the different grant rates that will be available for farmers, you'll see we've 12 different forest types which should suit most different different eventualities that farmers want to plant, from FT1, which is native forest, all the way down to mixed height forest for thick spruce or mainly spruce with broadleaves, which is FT12. The premium rates range from in FT1 over €1,100 to FT12, which is €760. We also have the native tree area scheme, which you can see on the lower line there. We've NTA1 and NTA2. I'll explain them later on. The premium from NTA1 is €2,206, and then for NTA2 is €2,286. So quite a lot of grant. Quite good grant rates, and they're condensed into 10-year premiums, as opposed to the premium rates for the FT1 to 12 are for 20 years for farmers. We've done two different examples for you here this evening. The first one is for native forest type 1, which is for native forest, as I said. Its annual premium is over €1,100. So if you have 8 hectares, it actually get €8,824 per annum, which over 20 years, which is €176,000. So quite a substantial sum of money for planting 8 hectares. We've also FT12 planting scenario. So if you planted 12 hectares of this FT12, you get €8,900 of premium annually, which works out at €179,000. Then I suppose the main aims of the different forest creation is to deliver on ecosystem services and with environmental and climate benefits in mind. Our annual target is for 8,000 hectares annually, which is broken down through the 12 different FT types. We're also going to increase the premiums from 15 years in the last forestry program to 20 years in this forestry program for farmers. Also, we've significantly increased the grants and the premiums. In the new program as well, we have a mandatory 20% broadleaves in all conifer type forests, and we have a national annual target of 50% of our planting has to be broadleaves too. Also within this, we've the new program. We've a number of new different forest types. We've forest for water, we've emergent woodland, neighbour woods, seed orchards, and continuous cover forestry. And I'll go into details on them in the coming slides. Also within the forestry programme, to encourage the planting of more native forests, we have €1,000 top up through the Woodland Environmental Fund, which partners both farmers who are planting native forests and companies looking to get some environmental benefits out of planting native forests to partnership up with farmers. So just to jump into the into the forest types, we've FT1, which is native forest, which is promotion of native forest for biodiversity and within the wider landscape to deliver on ecosystem services such as soil and water and to protect and enhance the landscape. This FT planting type is done through the native forest framework and identifies the most appropriate native forest type for each particular plot, and is principally based on the different soil types, which are matched with a different scenario of native forest species and also the different mixtures within them. FT2 then is for the creation of forests in strategic locations to deliver on specific ecosystem services in regards to protection of water and the aquatic ecosystems, and it's there to enforce and to expand the areas of alluvial woodlands. It's designed to address specific needs to help Ireland to achieve water quality objectives, and also as set out in the river basin management plans for Ireland, and it's to expand the alluvial woodland to help protect drinking water sources too. FT3 then is for forests on public lands, so it's for kind of government departments and educational institutes that may have land available for afforestation, and this one is not for farmers. So FT4 then is for amenity forests and neighbourhoods. It's for private land, or private land is going to be planted into native forests that can be accessible for recreation from local communities, and it's to be established on greenfield sites. And also there is a recreation kind of element to it also too. So it need to be built into the actual plan when making the application for this type of forest. FT5 is for emergent woodland. So it's to protect and enhance young native forests already emerging on sites through natural regeneration. It's designed to encourage landowners to consider the possibility of retaining existing emergent woodlands and to allow this habitat to grow on as native woodlands for both environmental and wood production purposes. And it's also so that it's intended that it'll grow into a kind of high forest as well too. FT6 is for broadleaf, mainly beech and oak, to be grown for producing high quality timber. And also when you're establishing this, you can introduce nurse species also to give protection to the young oak trees so that they can, form good quality trees and drive on in their growth. Also FT7 then, which is another broadleaf one, you can plant cherry, birch, Spanish chestnut, sycamore, so basically all the different broadleaf types other than beech and oak. And also you can introduce nurse species in this FT type, and it's for the growing of and producing of good quality hardwood species. Agroforestry, which is quite popular and there's quite a demand for this this new FT type, is for the establishment of silvopasture and agroforestry systems, which will combine both forestry and pasture in the same land parcels. It has a minimum stocking rate of over 600 trees per hectare. And then when you're designing, you need to plan out kind of what different agricultural activities you're going to do on that parcel so that you can accommodate machinery such as hay rakes and that kind of stuff. Acceptable species within this FT type is oak, sycamore, Italian alder, walnut and cherry. And you can also grow up to 15% fruit and nut trees on this FT type. FT9 is for the establishment of seed orchards. It's for, basically producing and increasing the quality and quantity of native or Irish produced seed. It's for establishment of seed orchards on greenfield sites, and the maximum eligible area for seed orchard is 5 hectares. Continuous cover forestry. So it's for the establishment of productive forests which are suitably structured with a diversity of tree species to be managed for continuous cover forestry from the initial planting. So when you're planting, you'd put in different groups and species of trees so that when they grow on into high forest, they can be thinned and managed for continuous cover forestry. Also within this conifer FT, there's a 20% broadleaf requirement. FT11, which is mixed type forest conifer, and it covers all the different other conifer species, which is Douglas fir, Scots pine, Norway spruce. This is available in the Forest Standards Manual of acceptable conifer species within the Forestry Programme. And also in addition to this, there's a 20% broadleaf requirement, and it's for the growing, I suppose, of the end product would be, commercial timber, which would go into long-term products such as roofing, furniture, etc. FT type 12, which is similar to 11, but this one is for sickle spruce along with 20% broadleaf, and same again, it's to go into long-term timber products, would be the end use of a lot of this timber. And then to move on next then into the native tree area scheme. So this is to introduce this scheme, I suppose it's the establishment of native forests that are less than 1 hectare. And basically through the scheme, there is no need for a license requirement as per like the first 12 FTs. We have 2 different types: native tree area 1, the creation of small native forests, and NTA 2, which is the creation of native forests for the protection of water. So the scheme will not follow the pre-approval process of the afforestation scheme, as I've already said. It's a direct entry scheme, and it will apply using the same approach using the agri-environmental schemes. The eligibility criteria incorporated into the scheme has been there or is there to ensure that all tree planting works will comply with environmental law, and we've about 3.1 million hectares available within this scheme for farmers to can apply for the NTA 1 and 2. The total amount of premiums has, as I said earlier, has been condensed from 20 years into the NTA scheme has been condensed into 10 years. And as I said earlier, the NTA 1 premium is €2,206, and then NTA 2 is 2,284 premiums. So quite a substantial premium over a 10-year period. That's about it, John. If you have any other questions, please ask, and thanks very much for having me on this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. I may ask you to come down and join us back here on the panel. You've outlined there a very wide range of forest types, and there must be ample opportunities in there to suit many different objectives of landowners, and particularly the last scheme, I think, was the native woodland scheme.
Yep.
I could imagine that being quite attractive even to some fairly intensive farmers, in that they can plant small areas around their farm.
Yeah, so there's great opportunity for farmers, especially with the native tree area scheme. You have native tree area 1, which is creation of small forests, and then NTA 2, which is small forests to protect water. And you can actually combine the two of them, so you can plant up to 2 hectares on your farm and combine, so your actual premium would be over €4,000 if you were to plant the full hectare per year over 10 years, which is a substantial sum of money, but also the benefits it'll also give your farm and the opportunities it gives for protection of water. And it's very well grant aided as well, and the premiums are excellent. So it gives good opportunities to do both farming and forestry, and people can dip their toe into the water and kind of see how forestry is.
Yep. So I must go and buy myself a farm. A couple of quick questions for you then, Robert, just before we move on. If someone listening in tonight wants to go ahead and apply for one of these schemes, what are the next steps they should take?
I suppose an excellent question, really, because what they need to do is probably engage a Teagasc advisor to look at the suitability of their land, but also look at the kind of premiums they can expect, and also the interactions between their other grant aid they may be getting for different payments. And then to engage a registered forester, we've registered forester list is available on the department website. And also, if you come along to the Teagasc Open Nights over the next in October, you can get to meet some of them registered foresters too, and they can discuss your options, go out to your farm and onto your site, have a look at it, see what the best opportunities are there and kind of the suitability, but also to listen to you to kind of see what your objectives are. Some people may want conifers to grow timber and to harvest, while other people's objectives may be totally different and be more environmental towards the native forest schemes, or, as I said, the NTA scheme, as I earlier spoke about. And with that, your application will be turned around much faster because there's no licensing process. And it's a bit like, as I said in the presentation, the agri-environment schemes, where your registered forester will make the application for you, and then hopefully it'll be nearly like an overnight process like the agri-environmental schemes, and you get approval. You could be even planting within the 1 week.
Okay, I'm glad you mentioned the approval time there, because that leads me on to my next question, which again, as with the Minister, might be slightly unkind. We've heard a lot about backlogs in relation to licensing and forestry, and I must admit, perhaps not so much recently as maybe a year or two ago. But with the new environmental regulations in the new programme, how long do you expect it will take an applicant will have to wait to get approval to plant? So
under the Farmers Charter, if site screens out environmentally, it can be, we're looking at about a 6-month turnaround. And then if it screens in under the Farmers Charter, up to 8 months. The department has taken on over 30 ecologists to help process these licenses that come in, both afforestation and felling and roading. So it's, we're looking to increase our efficiencies within the system. But we've also taken on quite a number of new forestry inspectors as well. So we're always building on kind of our human assets there and then also looking at our efficiencies and how we can increase our turnaround times on these different licenses, so that we get a faster turnaround time for the applicant, but also so they can get moving on their afforestation or their forest roads that bit faster too.
So you're expecting between 6 and 8 months?
6 and 8 months, that's what we're
depending on
aiming
the
for, yeah.
application.
There may be some sites may be more complicated, but that's what we're aiming for under the Farmers Charter.
Okay, thank you, Robert. And we'll be coming back to you with more questions again in the Q&A at the end. And just to remind people that there's the button at the bottom of your screen if you're on a computer or a laptop, or it may be at the top of the screen if you're on a mobile device. But anyway, look, please put your questions in now, and we'll have plenty for you at the end. So the RDS Forestry Awards are held annually to recognise forest owners who've excelled in the establishment and the management of their forests. And Teagasc sponsors the RDS Farm Forestry Awards. And this year's winner is Sean Creamer from County Leitrim, and he has recorded a short video of his experience.
My name is Sean Creamer. I'm a suckler farm. I farm 153 hectares with my wife Tricia and son John. I took over this farm from my father in 1977. Farmed with 30 sucklers, mostly Shirleys, some Limousine. I rear them to beef. We have calves every year. I do mostly AI. I've planted 9.5 hectares. 80% of that is broadleaf, 20% is conifer. Broadleafs have done extremely well here. We put in a variety of oak, alder, silver birch and rowan trees. Well, I've just seen now the red squirrel has actually come back into the forest, which is great to see because we haven't seen very little of them in the last number of years. Plenty of insects like bees and birds. Well, managing for the first couple of years was the hardest till it got strong enough. And once it's well fenced, once it takes off after a year or two, there's no hard work in this. Well, it's a great achievement from an environmental point of view. It's a great asset, but at least you're doing something right. Forestry's gone in and has done extremely well, and it's admired by everybody.
So Sean is a great example of how forests can be integrated into a working farm, and that forms a great introduction for our next speaker. Tom Houlihan is a forestry specialist in Teagasc, and he's going to explain to us how forests can be integrated into farms and some of the important issues to watch out for. So over to you, Tom.
So thank you, John, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My presentation this evening is how Teagasc can support you in new forestry creation, including how forestry can fit in at farm level. We've just heard from Sean Creamer, the current RDS Teagasc Farm Forestry Award winner. Congratulations to Sean, who planted 9.5 hectares of his farm, which represents less than 7% of the total area. And the award has recognised the positive and sustainable contribution of forestry in the overall farming mix, and also recognises Sean's active management of his forest, which is improving farming sustainability. Sean has put in both broadleaves and conifers in his forest, and a couple of things that really jumped out to me. Sean said once it takes off, there's no hard work in it, and also considers it a great environmental asset that is admired. So a few points in terms of getting started in forestry, and for new proposals, it's important to ensure there's confirmation in terms of the future eligibility for grant aid, which will include looking at appropriate soil types and environmental consideration. At an early stage, very important to set clear objectives on how forestry can fit in and improve the farming profile, and we call this whole farm planning. And for new forestry applications, the registered foresters, these are foresters registered by the department, are there to work with you in terms of submitting the grant application. And as your forest establishes, it really pays to take an interest in the forest, but also monitor its progress and its management. I mentioned whole farm planning, and what is this? Certainly things to look at as people go on the forestry journey. Can the forest enhance farming sustainability? And we look at from a financial, environmental, and from a social perspective. If we look at the financial perspective, what are the suitable forest types for you that will fit in on your farm? Is it going to be a non-farm timber supply or fuel supply that is desired? Important to look at the tax and labour efficiencies that certainly are there to be explored. And how can the forest help improve family farm income? Not just the initial supports, but also the future revenues from timber and other sources. And we'll cover to a small further extent to the interactions of farm enterprises and schemes in the next couple of slides, which are really important. Looking at the environmental side of sustainability, can the forest deliver for you in terms of landscape, in terms of biodiversity, water quality, and indeed carbon capture? From a social perspective, is there a capacity to create a family resource and amenity to enjoy? And looking to the future, is it possible to create a non-farm pension fund? And thinking of possible retirement, inheritance, and succession planning questions. So all these areas are really important to consider. The next couple of slides will look at forestry schemes and how they, farming schemes and how they interact with forestry. Firstly, direct payments in forestry. And we've been introduced this year to BIS, which is the Basic Income Support for Sustainability Scheme. For eligible BIS applicants, there is the capacity to draw BIS payments and the forestry supports on the same land. And another scheme this year called CRIS, which is the Complementary Redistributive Support for Sustainability Scheme. And this is an annual decoupled payment per eligible hectare to farmers that are entitled to basic income support. And for eligible CRIS applicants, payment will be on the first 30 eligible hectares claimed, and the good news is that this can include eligible forestry. If we move on to the organic farming scheme and forestry, how do they interact? And the scheme recognises the contribution of well-planned forestry to the creation of a valuable landscape mosaic on the farm. And organic farming scheme parcels may be converted to forestry during the organic contract period without penalty. And while parcels claimed as forestry within organics will not be eligible for the organic payments, land declared as agroforestry can be eligible for the agroforestry supports, for the BIS payment and possibly CRIS, and also for the organic payments at the dry stock rate. And this is all on the same land parcel, which is a really attractive package. Finally, looking at acres in forestry, and again with very good compatibility here. So for future applicants considering the acre scheme, which opens again from mid-October, they can explore forestry opportunities when planning for the acre scheme. And for existing acres participants, there is a capacity to split parcels where appropriate to facilitate new planting. There is also the potential to move parcels from acres to forestry without penalty during the course of the acres contract, where the existing acres commitment is in place for at least 2 years, and when the new commitment is considered either of higher or of equal benefit to the environment or to climate. So finally, to finish up, I must emphasize the comprehensive Teagasc supports that Teagasc can provide through a range of sources. So we provide tailored one-to-one support through office consultations, phone consultations, online, or even out on field visits. We also run local, regional, and national events to support you, both on the field situation, but also through information meetings. And we're going to really drill down further here in terms of supporting you with a lot more detail at our 20 nationwide series of information meetings in conjunction with the department coming up in October. We also have extensive online supports. Check out our website, a huge amount of detail. Sign up for our e-newsletter. Why not try out our YouTube videos on the Teagasc YouTube channel? Really informative. Look at our social media presence, very extensive, and also why not download the Teagasc app. So plenty of supports there, and we're here to support you through this new program. So I'll finish at that, and I'll hand you back to John.
Thanks, Tom. I'll ask you now to join us on the panel as well, if you would, please. There's certainly a lot to consider in your presentation there, a lot of interacting schemes and even more acronyms, seemingly. And I think that probably underlines the importance of getting good, impartial advice, and that can't be overstated, getting that advice before you consider your options, again, particularly with all of those interacting schemes. Again, I've got a couple of quick questions for you, Tom, before we move on to the general Q&A session. And as mentioned by the Minister, forestry is a permanent land use change. Can you explain in simple terms what this means on the ground?
Okay, John. So we'll take forest owners that have maturing forests coming to the stage where they may be considering to harvest the timber, and under the Forestry Act of 2014, there is a requirement when harvesting to replant afterwards. And I suppose a couple of the reasons here is to sustain the future timber resource, and also in terms of sustaining capacity for carbon capture. When considering forestry, it certainly is, I suppose, it's one of the elements in whole planning to look at the forestry as a long-term land use. And so there is a replanting requirement there.
Okay, thanks, Tom. And one final short question to you then. Are Teagasc providing forestry advice supports in every county? And if they are, how can people avail of that support?
Yes, okay. So I've got 8 very hard-working forestry advisors located regionally around the country, but they cover every county. So all of the 26 counties are covered. So the forestry advisors link in with local advisors and get good support there. They're supported by our research staff based in Athenry, in Ashtown, and here in Oak Park as well. So there's very good interaction there. And I think, like was said before, John, we're very ambitious in terms of this new forestry programme, and we are there to support people who already have forestry, but also those who are considering the new option. And we are there to look at the options for them, decision support on their farm forestry journey in the future. So look, we're very positive about this new programme.
Okay, thanks, Tom. We'll now move into the general Q&A session, and for that we're joined by our colleague Liam Kelly, who's been taking the online questions, and we'll be putting them to the panel, or if the questions are asked directly, or if not, perhaps to me, and I'll pick a victim, Liam. Perhaps while you're just preparing those, I might ask another question, and maybe this is to you, Tom, or maybe to Robert. But what qualifies a farmer to be eligible for the farmer premiums within the forestry scheme?
Okay, I'll take that, John. So under the new programme, in terms of eligibility for the farmer premium, which is for 20 years, the applicant would be an approved participant in the BIS for the application year. So I mentioned what BIS is. I think people are getting familiar with the BIS scheme in the application year. In addition to that, there's also the requirement to be an approved participant in either BIS or the previous basic payment, or BPS as they call the scheme, in each of the previous 4 years. So they're the two parts of that requirement. And people completing their BIS application this year would also be familiar with the active farmer status requirements under the BIS scheme, which would include either a minimum livestock units per hectare, growing crops, or maintaining, managing landscape features. So it's really linked to the BIS. So just to repeat, for the application year, that there would be an approved participant in the application year for BIS, but also you're looking at the 4 previous years, each of those to have been an approved applicant as well.
Okay, thanks. And presumably if anyone has any doubts about that, they can contact their local advisor or local forester and get that clarified, or perhaps the department as well, and see if they're eligible or not.
Yep.
Okay, we'll hand over to you, Liam, for the first question.
Thanks, John. And the Q&A function has been very busy here tonight. We have over 80 questions or so have come through. So just to start with and to follow the team on the farmer, and I've kind of put these in together as so that there'll be similar questions. If I plant under a new scheme as a farmer, can I in time then transfer the payments to my son, who's a non-farmer? And also as part of that, if I plant my land and plant all my land and then discontinue as a farmer, will I continue to still get the 20-year premiums?
I don't know, Robert, do you want to take that one? The first part's quite complicated, I guess.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, that someone will be entitled, once he takes over the farm, to continue getting the farm payments. In relation to the second one, if it's a whole farm, it might get a bit difficult. I know under the last forestry schemes and BIS payments, you had to retain at least 3 hectares to get your BPS to still qualify for it. So I don't know whether that continues under the new one, but it would be worth, say, whoever that person is, contacting either their Teagasc advisor or their registered forester can make that query to the afforestation, the Form 1 section within Johnstown Castle, and they could follow up on that. But it would, if anybody's got queries in relation to their farmer status, that they can engage with the Form 1 application for afforestation section in Johnstown Castle and just get it checked out.
Okay, just for clarity, Robert, that's the Department of Agriculture in Johnstown Castle rather than Teagasc or the EPA, seeing as we're all on the same site.
Yes, yeah, the Department of Agriculture, the Forestry section, and the Form 1 section within Forestry in the Department of Agriculture in Johnstown.
Okay. And if I can just add there, I think the immediate family ruling in terms of succession will be there as well to help that process in terms of transfer from one generation to the next. But I'm sure more details will be available in the coming period as well on that.
Okay, and the second part there, just if someone has planted their land and then discontinues farming, they will still continue to collect the
Yeah, once they're farming initially, my understanding is that they will continue to draw definitely the forestry premium. Now we need to look into maybe the other direct payment support, but definitely the forestry premium could still be paid at a farmer rate.
Okay, moving on, and then Ireland has only 11% forest cover. Why do we need planning permission? So I leave that to...
Who wants to take that one?
I'll take that one if you like. And it is a question that comes up a lot. Why can't we just plant trees, and aren't they just a crop? And I mean, I think when you think about even building a house in Ireland, and you're waiting at least 6 months for planning permission, you know, because there are impacts on all sorts of aspects. Forestry is classified as a project, and when you think about an area of like a house on a 1/4 acre site versus maybe 7 hectares, it's a massive impact on that area. So that is why we need the planning permission. That's why we need the robust system of licensing. And I know that has been a challenge, and we have come off the back, you know, 3 years ago there was a massive backlog in the licensing system. But I have worked incredibly hard with my officials in my department over the past 3 years to clear the backlog, to clear the delays in the appeals process, and to, I suppose, create an efficient, fit for purpose licensing system. It's still, as you heard from Robert, going to take a number of months, but I think previously, over the previous number of years, people didn't know how long it was going to take, and I think that was a lot of the frustration that existed in forestry, and it did, you know, damage confidence in the sector. But just, I think we're over those difficulties. We have a really efficient system. We've more ecologists than ever before. We've forestry inspectors. We've engineers. We've, you name it. We have the system now to deal with the licenses that as they come in, and we're looking forward to dealing with lots more licenses in the future.
Well, it's good to hear that the system seems to be in place.
Yes.
Okay, there's lots of questions in relation to the native tree area scheme, and I suppose, first of all, can you plant 2 areas under NTA 1 and NTA 2? So can you plant 2 hectares under the scheme?
Yes, you can. So you can plant one under NTA 1 and another hectare under, up to another hectare under NTA 2. Obviously, it has to be adjoining water because the second one is for creation of small woodland. And most farmers will have a stream or something like that that would qualify for it. So yes, you can.
And as a follow-on, can that 1 hectare be made up of a number of small parcels?
I think it's you have to kind of keep it in one parcel, but that's something I could check out. But I think it has to be kept within the one parcel. I think you can't split it over quite a number of parcels, very small parcels across your farm.
And also, when do you expect that scheme will actually be opened for application?
Yeah, so we had a meeting there during the week, and so it's hoping to open around the 4th of October, so in the first week or two, hopefully we'll be ready for applications to come into the system, and hopefully we'll start issuing decisions fairly straight away then, so people can get planting and get going. Obviously they may have to wait because trees may not be available from the nurseries until November, but if you have an approval at hand anyway, it's good.
And does that application require a registered forester?
Yes, it does. So if you don't have a registered forester already, or you can either ask someone who's obviously previously been in forestry, or you can look up on the department website the list of registered foresters, and there'll be plenty of foresters in your locality that you can engage one of them to make an application on your behalf.
Okay. There's also lots of interest in the existing management schemes, and just I suppose as overall, when will they be coming into play, or when will they be open for application?
Yeah. So at the moment, as I said, we're NTA, the Native Tree Area Scheme. We'll get that rolled out, and that'll be followed by the Woodland Improvement Scheme. There's 5 different elements to the Woodland Improvement Scheme. There's the tinning and tending, first and second intervention. There's coppice and coppice with standards. There's also a continuous cover forestry. There's seed stand management for people who already have seed stands and they want to manage that to increase the productivity in the collection of seed. And then there's the agroforestry maintenance element. So there are 5 different elements wrapped into one scheme. So there's lots of different options, but also for different forest types and different people who have different forest types to manage the forest of them. So there will be rolled out over the next coming months, and we followed up by a number of other different schemes. Obviously, iPlan within for forest management planning, and the climate resilient reforestation as well. And we've a number of options within that for forest owners too.
Okay. Also, you mentioned there was 12 different forest types. That doesn't necessarily mean that there's one particular forest type planted on a individual forest. Can you maybe explain that maybe a little bit?
Yeah. So, we've 12 different forest types. You may, in your application, or you may have, as I said before, different objectives that you may want to do. So, you may want along streams and water. You may want native tree area scheme or forest for water, which is FT2. But you also may want to kind of, as a pension pot or something like that, to plant either FT11 or 12 or even 10 continuous cover forestry. So there's lots of different options. You could, if you had 5 plots, you could also plant 5 different FT types. So your registered forester will help you plan out that and what and where may be best suited to you, because you take into your plan whether you're close to maybe roading and stuff like that, public road, and if maybe your native forest might be down the back and your more commercial forestry will be up the front, close to public roads, so that when you do build a forest road something in the future, it reaches the commercial kind of timber that you can extract it and bring it to roadside fairly easily.
Okay, and can I spread this one to Tom in relation to our own service? Is our service available to non-Teagasc clients and to non-farmers?
Yes, so I suppose working within Teagasc, we would have a lot of farmer clients. The majority would be farmer clients, and we would be available to support farmer clients. But also, if there are other queries, we're not going to turn anybody away. We'll answer questions and we'll support decision making as far as possible in all respects.
Tom, just for clarity, when you say farmers, they don't have to be existing Teagasc clients. That's for any farmers.
Yeah, it's open to Teagasc, but also non-Teagasc. So
farmers, yeah,
we're out there for all people considering forestry.
Okay.
Okay, just one or two more. Plenty of interest in reforestation and changing the species. Is there any support available? You know, if you're changing to broadleaves or native woodland at that stage, can woodlands be converted to native woodland and get support for doing so?
Yeah. So in the new forestry programme, we brought in a new measure for climate resilient reforestation, and there's kind of three parts to that. One of them being native forests, so that you can re-establish using the same model as native woodland conservation that was previously there before, to establish on that. Previously maybe you had Sitka spruce or Norway spruce on it, that you can go back in now and establish a native woodland on that, and there's a number of ecosystem payments that will go with that, so you get a premium then as well for 7 years. So not only will we support you in the costs of re-establishing a native forest on that site, but also we'll give you seven premiums. We also do continuous cover forestry within that climate resilient reforestation, and then also along streams and kind of where in biodiverse kind of parts, there's also another element for that for protecting and enhancing biodiversity as well. So loads of different options now within the new forestry programme for reforestation, which is great.
Okay, and
we'll just have to take one more question.
One more. Okay, I suppose this is related and how it's both together. It can be, any fruit trees be planted under the new scheme, and also can cereals be planted between the alleys with agroforestry?
Yeah, so we do have a pilot scheme within the agroforestry. It's for arable forestry, so you can put in arable crops, corn or wheat, and plant trees in rows. And also then within agroforestry you can plant up to 15% fruit or nut, so it'll hopefully bring in a lot of pollinators also within the forest, and also that you have another different crop there, whether it's apples or pears or different nuts, hazelnuts or whatever it is. So it kind of multi-diverse and lots of different ecosystem services to be delivering from the one forest.
Okay, thank you. Just to say, there's a lot more questions on it. We will endeavour to answer them with the upcoming forest information meetings, and also maybe with we'll respond to them in due course.
Okay, thanks, Liam. So that brings us nearly to the end this evening. I just have a few thanks to make, and firstly to you, the audience. There's a great audience and a great attendance this evening, and it's great to see the interest. Also, thanks to Frank and Sean for the videos that they put together for us. And thanks to the panel, Minister Pippa Hackett, Robert Windle, Tom Houlihan and Liam Kelly for his help with the questions. I'd also like to thank my colleagues Declan McArdle and Rachel Gregan for pulling this webinar together tonight. It takes a huge amount of effort, far more than any of us really appreciate. And there's obviously a huge amount in the new forestry programme, a huge amount of information, the number of questions this evening that we couldn't answer. So don't forget the upcoming information meetings taking place throughout the country during the middle of October. And before we wrap up finally, Minister, do you have any final words?
Just to say, I think it's a really exciting time for forestry now. There has been a cloud over it for the last number of years, but I think that's starting to scatter. The sun is going to shine on forestry, and I've had the privilege of visiting many happy forest owners who enjoy their forests, who enjoy walking through them, enjoy seeing them develop over the years, over the decades. So get out, talk to your forest, talk to your Teagasc advisors, talk to your foresters, go visit somebody who has a forest and talk to them about it, because it's such a wonderful thing to do, and we've got the money there to support it, so get planting.
Thank you very much, and good night everyone.